The Atlanta Braves head into the weekend looking for another series victory as they welcome the San Diego Padres to Truist Park for a wraparound four-game series that wraps up on Monday. The pitching is firing on all cylinders. The offense is quite literally hit or miss, but that's been a story this year. And despite all that, Atlanta has the second best record in the National League. That sounds really good until you realize the only problem with that is the Philadelphia Phillies are the owners of the best record in the league and are thus sitting atop the NL East standings. But I will say, with a lot of baseball left to be played. I'm Grant McCauley. He's Chris Willis. This is Battery Power TV. Before we dive into yet another episode of the show, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Leave us a like on this episode. Leave us those comments as well. If you got questions for the show, we'd love to hear those. And hit that subscribe button so you get notified every time we drop a new episode. Chris, we're all still waiting on the offense to really crank things up this season, but it's the pitching staff that has been one of the best that I think we have seen in this era of Braves baseball.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, pitching staff has carried the load. Offense has done just enough most nights. But, I mean, after Spencer Strider went down and Max Fried got off to that slow start, you had to really be concerned about where the Braves pitching was. But Chris Sale's been outstanding. Reynaldo Lopez has been outstanding. Charlie Morton had a rough start his last time out, but, he's been good. And Max Fried has taken his game to another level after that rough start.
Yeah, a little maximum Fried here lately. And you're right, the newcomers in the rotation have more than done their part, and hopefully that's a trend that continues. And Charlie Morton has been Charlie Morton for the most part, which is oftentimes more good than bad if we're really breaking it all down to brass tacks. But we'll stick a pin in all of that, if you'll pardon the pun, and talk a little bit about what the Braves have been doing here lately, because they have gotten back to winning series after that frustrating road trip out west. One against Boston, another against the Mets, 2 out of 3 from the Cubs as well, to set up this 4-game series with the Padres that we'll get into a little bit later. One big bat we've been waiting to see turn it on is first baseman Matt Olson. After breaking his 26-game homerless drought against the Mets last week, he has started to put some things together at the plate. Olson's batting .303 in his last 9 games. He's got hits in 8 of those 9, a pair of home runs, and his 3-run shot in the 6th inning against the Cubs. It really represents what I think is the biggest offensive outburst for this club and this lineup in a couple of weeks. That was all good to see. And again, in what feels like a bit, or at least a regular segment on this show, I checked the StatCast data to make sure that my eyes were not lying when it comes to Matt Olson. 98th percentile in hard hit rate, 98th percentile in average exit velocity, 92nd percentile in expected weighted on base. I say all of that, Chris, to point out that it's all there, but at some point, Olson's luck, I think, simply had to improve, and we're seeing a bit of that lately.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he's been squaring the baseball up for a while now and starting to see some results out of it. There's still some swing and miss there, but there's always has been too. He's taking his walks. I thought it was a good sign. I know he had the big game against the Cubs, but that in the loss Wednesday, that line drive single he had to center field, man, that thing was blistered. He stayed on it. And I think, he's just like a lot of these guys when he starts hitting the ball to center, left center, that's when you really see him take off. And I think we're getting really close to seeing having one of those streaks.
Yeah, and this is a guy that has shown over the first couple of years he is capable of, as they say, going on a heater. I mean, last year he had a big-time hot streak that was full of home runs. I mean, he's somebody that you might even expect, if he gets hot enough, could hit 20 home runs in a month, because he darn near did it last year. 54 homers, 139 runs knocked in a year ago. Not quite reaching those lofty goals just yet, but we are starting to see those signs, and we all know what the month of June has represented for the Atlanta Braves the last couple of years, and that is a real time to get right, and it looks like Matt Olson's trending in that direction. Now, the Braves have been operating without one of their big bats this week, as Austin Riley was forced to leave Sunday's game in New York with an issue in his side, and thankfully, not another oblique injury. Riley has said he's feeling much better. We should see him back in the lineup, I think, as soon as this weekend, based on the comments from that Cubs series. I don't know if I need to say it, but I'll do it anyway. It sounds like Riley and the Braves really dodged a bullet here, as this lineup, in its current state and its current output, cannot afford to be operating without its 3-hitter for a long period of time.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's always scary when you see a hitter grab his side. I mean, we saw it with Sean Murphy on opening day. You never know how long that's going to be. That could be a 2-week thing. That could be a 6 to 8 week thing, as we've seen with Murphy. So, just really good. Everybody was holding their breath when he had the MRI. Good news comes out of it. We know the Braves are going to be extremely cautious with him. Would not be surprised to see him back in the lineup for Friday's opener, but it may be this. It does seem like he's trending at least to come back at some point this weekend.
It felt like once he said he was feeling a little bit better on Tuesday that the Braves would operate with their usual approach, which is, okay, you're feeling good. Let's give you another day. And then, of course, you had the off day on Thursday, which is going to be in short supply coming up because they won't have another one until June the 2nd. Would seem to line up to Riley perhaps being back in as soon as Friday. With Austin Riley out, though, newcomer Zack Short was an unlikely hero for this offense. He's been an on base machine. He even had a big hit in game one to help beat the Cubs in that 2-0 victory. The job of backup infielder is probably a dubious distinction for most because most days the starters are not going to be taking time off. Short, though, really stepped in, played an important role to help the club with Riley down for a little while. And I think he made a heck of a first impression.
No, without a doubt. We've already seen more of Zach Short than I was expecting to see, honestly. And credit him for making the most of that opportunity. He's went in there, he's had good at bats, he's walked a bunch, scored runs, he can run. And I've been impressed with his arm at third base. I don't know about you, but I mean, he made that play, that backhand way down the line the other night and threw across. And I mean, it was a strike. So, I can see what the Braves really liked about him. I think he's got the arm to play shortstop some too. So, credit him for coming in and doing his job and making the most of that opportunity.
Yeah, he plays 3 infield spots, can, be a corner outfielder if you needed him to. You mentioned he can run. We haven't seen it yet, and hopefully we don't have to, but he can also pitch. He's made 6 appearances on the mound in his career, or at least he did last year, maybe more than that career-wise. I'd have to go back and look, but again, that's not the glass that you want to be breaking. Again, Austin Riley needed a few days to recuperate, and maybe Brian Snitker was of the belief that maybe Ronald Acuna Jr. could benefit from it, just a day off, and he got one on Wednesday. These kinds of things I think can be valuable, and this one serves a few purposes, at least from where I'm sitting. None bigger than helping the star right fielder get a little bit of a mental reset in what has been a very challenging start to his season, to say the least. And now maybe he can just get back in the game, and things will come just a little bit easier for having let a little bit of the pressure off.
Yeah, you got to feel like he's trying to. He set the bar unbelievably high last year, and he doesn't want to get off to a slow start. He really didn't have a slow month all last season, so this has got to be difficult for him. Getting an off day and a day off, and then plus the off day, just reset, go out there, let your talent take care of things, and get on a roll, because it did seem like he was kind of turning things around a little bit, and then kind of got cold again. So hopefully it'll jumpstart him, because I still feel like when Ronald gets going, that's when the rest of this offense is going to take off.
It really is. I make this old joke, the Reggie Jackson quote, the straw that stirs the drink. Ronald is definitely that guy. And if there was one thing, when you look at, again, to go back to kind of the Matt Olson approach of trying to size up, okay, well, why is he not, a little bit more fortunate? You can look at where the launch angle is. That's one thing. But Ronald had 4 hard hit balls and went 0 for 5 against the Cubs on Tuesday, including one ball that looked like it could be out most nights, but for whatever reason, it was staying in the park, and Pete Crow Armstrong was able to run that thing down. I just feel like it's going to turn for Ronald. Just when is the question I think everybody has.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he's too good. He's too talented, for this to linger too much longer. But I did it when he hit that ball. That Crow Armstrong ran down. I thought that ball was gone, honestly. And there's been a lot of that, and I don't know if it's the baseball, the colder temperatures. Seems like they have played in a lot lot more windy and cool temperatures than what we're used to. But hopefully Ronald can start turning things around this weekend.
Yeah, if Ronald Acuna Jr. is able to turn things on, it means good things for this Braves offense. And I know it could happen any day, but it feels like this lineup could be clicking, and some of these guys could be taking off. And not just Acuna, not just Riley, not just Matt Olson, but a collective breakout. Feels like it's just a matter of when. But, of course, I think we've been feeling that way for a while when it comes to this group.
Yeah, 27 hits though against the Cubs. That was the thing that jumped out to me. Even Wednesday's loss, they still, I think they had 8 or 9 hits in that game. Just couldn't get the big one, and obviously fell behind early. So, you'd like to see some doubles, you'd like to see some homers. But again, if you look at the metrics, they lead the majors in average exit velocity. And at some point, you got to have faith that at some point, if you keep doing that, the results are going to come, because that's usually, that's what the numbers show.
It's just crazy to think of a club that did those kinds of things last year when it comes to hitting the ball harder than any other team in baseball, hit 300 plus home runs, slugged 500 as a team, and set a franchise record, single season anyway, for runs scored. is having this much trouble scoring runs, hitting homers, and slugging. It's just it's baffling. But that's baseball. It throws a lot of things at you. Maybe getting Sean Murphy back will help out. It certainly won't hurt to have the Atlanta catching duo at full strength again. Travis d'Arnaud has been great. I think we expected that he could step in and be everything the Braves need, and he has been while Murphy's been out. But it sounds like a rehab assignment's right around the corner for Murphy, who injured that oblique way back on opening day. Chris, it's been a while since we've seen Sean Murphy, but it'll be nice to have him back in the mix for the Atlanta Braves.
I think everybody forgets how good Sean Murphy is. I mean, I know he ended last season on in a bit of a downturn offensively, but you got to remember last season when Travis d'Arnaud went out with concussion, the Braves were kind of scuffling offensively, and Murphy carried them for a week, 10 days there, and he's that kind of bat. So yeah, I mean, getting Travis has been outstanding. I think he's given them more than you reasonably could have expected. Chadwick Trump's been good behind the plate, handling pitching staff. But getting Sean Murphy, that's an all-star level player, and getting him back in the lineup is going to be a huge boost.
Yeah, again, a guy who had 20-plus homers last year and 800-plus OPS. It's nice to add those kind of players to the overall available assets for a lineup, and the Braves lineup most certainly will take all it can get to get back to full strength in a number of different ways. Speaking of returns, on the other side of things, Pierce Johnson should rejoin the Braves bullpen this weekend. The former Padre slated to come off the injured list where he landed a couple of weeks ago with some elbow inflammation. Braves took a cautious approach here, gave him that extended break. It seems like it's just what Johnson needed. Bullpen, though, has been posting a lot of quality innings of late, but it's going to be nice to have one of their primary setup men back in this mix as well.
Yeah, you had to worry about the right-handed depth on the bullpen side when Johnson went out, but you got to credit those guys too. They've done the job largely while he's been out, and that also some of that credit goes to starters who are going deep in games and lessening the load on that. But getting Pierce Johnson back is going to be huge. He's been a key reliever ever since he came over in the trade last year with the Rockies, and he's going to play a big role in that 7th, 8th inning.
Yeah, and the Braves will love to have that depth back. Joe Jimenez has been great. Obviously, A.J. Minter in the setup role is one of the most important arms that the Braves have. And you've got a closer in Raisel Iglesias, but how you get to him and when maybe Raisel Iglesias is down, Pierce Johnson has an opportunity with a little bit of closing experience himself to step into that role if he's needed. So it can serve a variety of different needs for this Braves club to get this guy back in there. Now, I don't want to get out of here, obviously, without talking a little bit about the San Diego Padres, who roll into Truist Park to open up this 4-game series, which ends on Monday afternoon. They come in second place in the NL West, but that is a bit deceiving. San Diego 22-24, 2 games under 500, dealing with some of the same kind of things the Braves are. They have some big bats who aren't hitting either. Fernando Tatis leads the club with 8 home runs, but has a sub-800 OPS, hitting just over 250. Manny Machado's batting .222 with a .622 OPS, and Xander Bogaerts hitting just .212 with a .573 OPS. All 3 of those hitters obviously much better than that, and the Padres are going to need a lot more than that to get their season going. Unlike Atlanta, though, San Diego has not been bailed out by the pitching staff, which outside of Dylan Cease, Yu Darvish, and closer Robert Suarez has been dealing with some inconsistent results at least, and is 19th in Major League Baseball with a .412 earned run average on the year. Chris, it's a series that would seem to favor the Braves on paper, particularly with how well Atlanta's pitching staff has been going, but we all know the game is not played there. It's Max Fried, Bryce Elder, Reynaldo Lopez, and Chris Sale lined up for Atlanta, who will see Darvish and Cease over the course of this 4-game set. But the question is, which version of the Braves offense is going to show up, and how consistently can they get out there and score some runs for a pitching staff that, as I've said many times, and we'll say here again, has been doing the work.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good matchup in that the Braves got 3 of their big 4, going on the mound. At the same time, I look at the Padres team. You look at everybody that's struggling, and I mean, they're still scoring a lot of runs. So that's got to give, if you're a San Diego fan, that's got to give you a little confidence because Tatis, Machado, these guys are probably going to get going at some point. It seems like they always play the Braves tough too, especially in out there, and have given them trouble at Truist Park too. So I think it's going to be a tough series, especially when Braves have had some good luck against Yu Darvish over the years, but he's not going to be an easy out. Dylan Cease, we know how good he is. They may get Joe Musgrove back as well, and I think he's struggled a little bit, but that's another quality arm. So I think there's a good chance here. The Braves have just been winning series, and that's all you can really ask. When you get these kind of matchups against the upper level I know they're under 500 now, but I still feel like this is a pretty talented team. So, if you can figure out a way to come out of this with a series win, that's a good thing. Here at the end of the May.
Yeah, and as we've said many times, you keep winning series all the way through the end of the season, you're going to end up in a pretty good spot. And the Braves have been a club that more times than not is winning a lot of series. We're taking 3 out of 4 from the Padres, though, before heading out and really heading back out on the road. Let me say that. And then beginning this long stretch of games in which they basically don't have another off day for a couple of weeks. That would be a good way to start it with some momentum as they close up this homestand at Truist Park and look to win yet another series. I think we just have to wonder, is this a series where the Braves bats really break through with some consistent and expected results? We're all going to find out together. With that, we have reached the end of another episode of BPTV. Hit that subscribe button right here on the Battery Power YouTube channel. Make sure you turn on those notifications. You'll get an alert every time we drop a new episode. Thanks again for riding along with us. I'm Grant McCauley. He's Chris Willis. We'll catch you next time. And until then, so long, Braves country.